Hi, in this video of Oracle PL SQL curriculum, we are going to start a new and a very interesting concept of database related activities is database triggers. Basically, database trigger is another kind of database object which contains the PL SQL code inside it, like we have already done in procedures and functions. And the difference if you get between the procedure and function is procedure doesn't return anything while function returns a single value using the return keyword. Likewise, the procedure trigger also doesn't return any value. But the difference is you have to explicitly invoke the procedure while the trigger is invoked implicitly. When I say implicitly, means by the time we create it, we will plan when I want this trigger to be executed. So, it is planned for a particular event and timing. As I said, when we will create it, we'll plan accordingly, like when I want this particular event, this particular trigger to be invoked, right? Like at what event? For example, I want to log all the login and logout timings for the employees working in a company. So login of a particular employee is an event. So whenever this will happen, I want this insertion on a particular table to take place, all right, so that we can judge like how many times a user has logged out or logged in on a particular month. And timing, when I talk about a database operations like any DML operations, so at that particular time, timing will come into action. For example, I want something to happen after insert statement, something to happen before insert operation. So before and after are the timings, and event is like insert, update, delete, log on, log off, alright. So depends which kind of trigger you are going to create, the events will keep changing accordingly, alright. Is executed implicitly on that event. As I said, whenever that particular event will take place, for example, if I have created a trigger for insert operation after, alright, like for after insert. So whenever I will insert the record on a particular mentioned table, after that this trigger will, right after that, this trigger will execute, alright. Is designed to perform related actions or to centralize global actions. Related action means, let's take a very simple scenario. I am going to insert a record in the employees table, and as a backup I want the same record should go in a backup table of also, right? So that if this table is maybe damaged or maybe we lost some data, so I will have a backup table with me, alright. So what I want, this related action should take place whenever a new record is inserted. So obviously a user will insert the record on the main table itself, but right after that this trigger will fire and the same records will be inserted in the another table. So this is something called a related action. Or to centralize global action. Global action means I want this thing, means when you insert a record in employees table, the same record should go in another backup table. This is a centralized task for me. For example, user 1 is doing this particular operation, but maybe user 2 will not do. So when I will define the same thing with the trigger, so manually these users don't have to insert the records in two tables. If any of the user, suppose we have hundreds of users who are inserting the record in table 1, and as a backup I want the same record in table 2, so through triggers this thing will be centralized. But yeah, we have to be very careful by the time we are started using the triggers, alright. So because as I mentioned here, excessive use of triggers may cause the complex interdependencies, alright. For example, table 1 is dependent on table 2, table 2 is dependent on table 1. So maybe at that particular time there may be some complexities may occur for a user. So if you are planning it, plan very effectively. If some kind of these complexities occurs, so at that particular time a user or a developer may disable or drop a trigger for a particular time, alright. If you want to disable a trigger so that you can do something easily. So you can also disable a trigger as part of the modifications. All right. Now, what all kind of triggers are available with us? All right. So we have application triggers and database triggers. We are not going to cover application trigger in this curriculum because it's a part of forms and reports. When you create a UI, there you will create an application, you will create some controls, and on the event, on the particular event, I want some task to take place. All right. So in that particular time, you will go for the application triggers, that is a UI event part. But we will focus here on the database triggers only. So in database triggers, you have a number of options like DML triggers, instead of triggers, and DDL triggers. As the name says, DDL trigger, whenever you will go through any DDL operation, such as you create a table, you drop a table, all right. For example, I want like no user should be able to drop any table. All right. So what I'll do means, if I'm giving an DBA rights to a particular user for other activities, but I don't want that dropping of a table should take place. So through the trigger, I can stop this particular operation, as this trigger will not allow any dropping should take place. All right. So this is the DDL trigger, which a user or any admin rather should create and can do some related operations. All right. DML triggers, as the name says, whenever you will do something like insert, update, or delete, you can go for the DML operations. All right. And you can plan it in a several ways. For example, if you want that any insertion of employees should take place within the office hours. For example, if your office hours from 9 to 5, you cannot insert any record after 5. All right. So if you are giving the permission for insertion to any particular user, you cannot revoke it after 5 p.m. all right. So at that particular time, whenever a record will be inserted, the DML trigger will take the action. Similarly, if you have given the permission to update a record, so any employee can update the salary to some lesser value. For example, initial salary may be 15,000, but a user can update it to 10,000. All right. I want that this should not take place. If you are updating, it should be increased salary every time. So here I'm going to read any row. For that, you can go for each option on a DML trigger to read the specific value on a particular row. These two will be rated for the database and for a table. But if you are going to perform any DML operation on a view, we already have covered the views in the Oracle SQL. If you don't have idea, you should go and listen to that. All right. So if you want to perform any DML operation with the view, so and probably that view is consisting a column from multiple tables. So in that particular time, we will go to the instead of triggers. So in this particular video, we are going to perform some basic operations with the trigger. We'll start with some basic operations and we'll cover few advanced level things, all right, regarding the DML triggers and instead of triggers. In our next video, we will perform some DML or DDL operations with the triggers as well. So let's start with the practical implementation of the DML and instead of trigger. So here in trigger, I'm going to work with the two tables, that is TBL employees and TBL departments, and here you can see there are few records inserted. Alright, so now in the first example, I am just creating a very simple trigger which will be invoked as soon as I will insert a record in the employees table. So let's write a trigger here. So as here you can see, I have written a trigger, create or replace trigger emp insert after. Alright, so this is your create or replace, which we have already covered a lot. Trigger, that's the database object. Emp insert is the name of this specific trigger. Alright, and when it will be invoked after insert, that simply means it's a DML trigger which we have discussed. Alright, so as soon as the insertion will be done, where on TBL employees means this table, this trigger will be invoked after that. Alright, and what it will do, it will just print a message. It's a sample trigger which I have created now. So it will just give us a message like record inserted. Alright, so let's create it. Alright, and now when I will insert a record in the employees table, let's do that, TBL employees, values, and let's enter a record like 105 John Cena, salary and department. All right. So you see, record inserted. This is the message which I have given in this particular trigger. All right. So this is the sample trigger. I don't need to invoke that explicitly. As soon as I will perform this operation, the record will be done. All right. So now let's make some logical implementations using the triggers. And here I have written another trigger with the name restricted insert. Alright, so before the data will be inserted, like in the sample trigger definition, I have used after event. Alright, so after timing, and here I used before as the timing. So before insert on TVL employees. So here is what I have written a trigger. So what I have done it inside sysdate means, first of all I will get the current date, I will get the time of that particular time, means the current time, alright, and I'll convert that to the 24 hours format. Alright, so if the time is between 9 means 9 a.m. in the morning to 1800 means till 6 p.m. in the evening, if time is not between these two things, then what I'll do, I'll raise an error, means I will not let that insert happen. So let's try that again. So alright, the trigger is formed. Now let's insert into TVL employees values. Let's add another one, 105. Let's say Dawn Cassidy. Let's say 15500 and department as 30. Alright, maybe I have entered already 105. Let's change the ID 106, and you see record inserted. Why? Because the time is correct. Now let's change the system time. Now for that I came here, and now I'll change the time. I'll make it, let's say 7:50 p.m. Alright, say OK, and now let's try to insert another record 107 Amit. Alright, so let's insert it. Now you see the error got up, right? You can add employees only between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. The same message which I have given right here in this triggers definition. Alright, so this is how you can insert, you can put some customized restriction to the DML operations, as the predefined restrictions, that means predefined constraints, cannot do such tasks. Alright, so let's change the time again. So let's make it correct time now, and now when I'll insert again, it will accept the data. So this is how you can write customized restrictions for making any DML. This trigger is only meant for the insert operation, but if you want, you can write a single trigger for different events such as insert, update or delete. For that, what I'll do now is I'll have to just separate insert or update or delete on TBL employees. Alright, so as you can see, it's before again. I'm doing the same task, but now this one is not only for insert but for update and delete as well. So, and the time range is same, the message is almost same. Alright, so here when I'm using this procedure, raise application error, I'll have to pass a couple of parameters. The first one is the error code, which is actually shown whenever this thing will take place, this error will come, it will show you aura and then this error code, and followed by this literal string message. Alright, so to check, I'll do the same thing again. It's not only for insert but also for update and delete. So let's change the time first. I have again set a time which is obviously out of that particular constant. So now let's try to delete from TBL employees where EMP ID is equal to 103. Alright, so as I said, like after aura 20124, 20124 is shown, and you can manipulate employee only between 9 a.m. to and 6 p.m. Alright, so this is how you can make such operations. Alright, now let's start doing some row wise. Like these are the operations which are implemented on a complete table. Alright, whenever insert, update or delete will take place. But now let's do it for the row wise. If you want to check a particular record and then compare, for that I'll have to write for each row for making it a row wise operations. And let's write a trigger here. So now here I have created a trigger called salary update check. Alright, before update means before updating the record it will be invoked. On of salary means it will not check for the complete table but for the specific column, that is salary on TBL employees. Alright, so for each row, when I say for each row means now for a particular row I can read the data. Alright, so for reading what I can do, new, when I will use this new qualifier, that means the record which is getting updated. For example, the initial salary was 10,000, the new salary which you are updating is 15,000. So 15,000 will be new, means the amount which you are updating. Alright, and this old qualifier means it will take the previous amount. Alright, means before update whatever the amount was there. So these are the qualifiers called old for the old data, new for the upcoming data. Alright, so you can only use these qualifiers when you use for each row. Alright, so inside this I have again checked, like if new salary is less than old salary, then again I will not let that happen. So for that again a error code followed by the message. So let's execute it. Trigger created. Now let's first read the data. Alright, so you see these are the records. Now let me do some update. Update TBL employees. Set salary is equal to 6,000, where EMP ID is equal to 106. Alright, so for 106 the current salary is 55. I'm increasing, it will not mind. Alright, okay, let me change the time first again. Okay, so now when I'll execute this command it will let me do that. Alright, so here you see the thing is done. But now let's commit the change first. Okay, and now when I'll do something like set salary is equal to 5,000, where EMP ID is 106. So the current salary of 106 is 6,000, and here I'm decreasing that. So when I'll try to do that, it will say updated salary cannot be lesser than the current salary. So the current salary is 6,000 and the updated salary means the amount which you want to update is 5,000. So it cannot be done. So this is how, as I said, this is how you can write customized validations for your DML operations. Either it's for the complete table or you want to check it for the specific row using for each row clause in the trigger. And now at last let's discuss about the instead of trigger. So as we discussed, instead of trigger is meant for the views. So again let's check some database objects which I'm going to use for this. So we have already discussed about the TBL employees and TBL departments. Alright, with these structures. On the basis of these two tables, I have created a view called EMP data. Alright, so let's check it. What is there in EMP data? So basically EMP data will take the data from both the tables, and here it will show you the employee ID, first name, last name and salary from the employees table, that is employee ID, first name, last name and salary. And department name, as you can see, it's not showing department ID but it's showing department name. So department name will come from this DPT departments table. Alright, so now what I want is whenever I will do an insertion in this particular view, the record should insert in the TBL employees table. But if I'm entering a data in this view emp data, I will have to enter department name rather than department ID. So what will I do? I will write an instead of trigger for this view, and what that will do basically, whenever I will insert a record in this view, it will get the ID for that department and will insert the data in this table. But while entering the data in the table, it will calculate it will find the department ID for that mentioned department. So let's write the trigger for that. And here I have written one. So what is there? Create or replace trigger emp dept insert instead of. Alright, the event is instead of, right? Instead of insert. You can write an instead of trigger for all the operations like insert, update, or delete. On emp data. emp data is the name of your view. Instead of triggers are meant for views only, as we said. And then here you will have to write for each row. Alright, so for each row, then I've declared a variable. Okay, I should pass the declare block in the top. Okay, I'll get an error, I'll rectify that later. Alright, so this is the department ID variable of number type, which should be inside the declare section. And now inside this begin, what I have done first, I will find the department ID and I will put that in this variable from TBL departments. Alright, so for example, by the time I'm entering the data, I entered dev, means development. So it will find the development's department ID and will be stored in this variable called did. Alright, v underscore did. And then if inserting, why I have written this? Because if you will be using this instead of trigger for multiple operations, like instead of insert or update or delete, so you can check like if inserting, then what you want to do, else if updating, then whatever you want to do, else if deleting, then. Alright, so accordingly you can write your code. So I just checked insert into TBL employees. Alright, in TBL employees I have 5 columns, that is ID, first name, last name, salary, and department. So for first 4 there is no problem, as I have already used for each row, so I can easily get the incoming data, alright, using the new qualifiers. So new employee ID, new first name, new last name, new salary, and v underscore department ID, because I have already found the department ID for the incoming department name. So I will insert that in my employees table. So let's create and get the error. Alright, so as I said, let's edit that, and here I will introduce the declare section. Let's save it, close it, and execute it. Trigger created. Alright, so now let's try to insert something in the view. Insert into emp data, values, let's say 108, Mukesh, now salary, let's say 4000, and department. Alright, I think in view first there is department. Yep, first it's department and then salary. So let me enter the department, that is dev. Alright, and now salary. You can also write a code where you can check whether this department is existing or not. If it is not existing, then first you will insert that department in departments table with the new department ID, and then you can insert that department ID. I just try to keep it simple for your better understanding. Alright, so it's saying record inserted because of my earlier view. Okay, so let's select the view first. Here you can see 108 Mukesh Kumar dev. Alright, but dev department ID is 30, that you can get from TBL departments. Here you can see department ID for dev is 30. So let's check that in the employees table. And here you can see by the time I entered 108 Mukesh Kumar, here I am getting 30 in the department ID column. Alright, so this is how you can start writing the instead of triggers.